What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. We have some very interesting news to talk to you about regarding the Raptors, the New York Knicks, and Rj Barrett. So shout out to Rap City who posted this on Instagram, which said that Leon was willing to move Rj Barrett to Toronto for the fourth pick, which was likely targeting rookie Scottie Barnes. And when you read the caption at the bottom, it says Ian Begley just said the Knicks shopped Rj Barrett to the Raptors in the draft to move up. Now, this is huge news because I don't know whether I should be surprised at the fact that the Knicks were actually willing to move Rj Barrett or the fact that they were looking at Scottie Barnes for the fourth pick over someone like Jalen Suggs. We make fun of the Knicks organization for making questionable decisions in the past, but it looks like they had their eye on Scottie Barnes as well. So for today's video, I'm going to break all of this news down, whether or not the Raptors should have done this trade. I'm also going to give you a very recent update on Goran Dragic as well at the end of the video. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, make sure to like this video. If you want to hit the subscribe button for the latest Raptors content, that'd be absolutely amazing as well. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shoutouts on my channel, and for today's video, the shoutout goes out to A1 Tactician. So A1 Tactician, thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. And with that being said, let's discuss this whole RJ and Raptors situation. We know RJ Barrett, Canadian kid. Raptors would have probably liked to trade for him, but not for the fourth pick, I don't think. Now, when you take a look at the draft, it did say the Knicks were willing to move up in the draft. So that's assuming that the New York Knicks were going to give up their 19th overall pick in this past draft to the Raptors and RJ Barrett for that fourth pick. Now, obviously, we know Scottie Barnes has had a very great rookie season so far, and I don't think even us Raptors fans, even the experts, wouldn't have predicted that he would be having the season he's having. But when you discuss the switch, or I should say the trade that was being offered, supposedly offered to the Raptors, which is RJ Barrett for the fourth pick and their first overall pick as well, and not the first, but the first round pick in the 19th overall, this is a very interesting trade scenario. So would the Raptors have done it? I don't know, guys, because when you consider the fact that we already are kind of set in the shooting guard and small forward position, we know RJ Barrett, he's listed at, I believe, 6'5", 6'6", and Gary Trent Jr., he's listed at 6'4", 6'5", so he's an inch taller than Gary Trent Jr. You could argue he's the better defender than Gary Trent Jr., he's a better passer, but when you take a look at some of the statistics, and when you compare the two players, you talk about Gary Trent Jr., he's giving you more points, they're averaging the same amount of blocks. They're not known for their blocks, but Gary Trent Jr. has been a menace, just getting some steals. You see that as well. And of course, RJ Barrett is the better rebounder and better passer for sure. Gary Trent Jr. is that sniper, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense because considering that the Raptors would have traded for RJ Barrett, let's pretend this scenario has actually gone through. Now, where do you place RJ Barrett? Do you play him as the sixth man? Do you play Gary Trent as the sixth man? We know Gary Trent has really struggled off of the bench and he plays much better as a starter, but then you trade for a 21-year-old, I believe he's 21, RJ Barrett. Do you have him come off the bench? You're obviously not having OG Anunoby come off the bench. So the Raptors were kind of set in that small forward shooting guard position. So it'd be a little bit challenging figuring out where you would play RJ Barrett. I think that would be the difficult questions. But even when you take a deeper dive into some of the statistics and if the decision was made, to play Gary Trent Jr. on the bench, when you talk about statistics, look at the statistics across the board. Gary Trent Jr. is giving you more points on more efficient percentages. His field goal percentage is 42.5 as compared to RJ Barrett, who's shooting 41.4. 3-point percentage, Gary Trent Jr. is the much better 3-point shooter. He's been on fire lately. He's shooting 39% from the field. RJ Barrett, 35.2. And the free throw percentage, there's a huge difference there as well. 82.3 for Gary Trent Jr. and RJ Barrett's only shooting 69.2% for a team that has already struggled shooting the free throws. I don't know how that would fit in. Again, I'm not saying I wouldn't want RJ Barrett on the Toronto Raptors. I definitely would, but definitely not for the fourth overall pick. Scottie Barnes is having a great rookie season. I think it's fair to say that Scottie Barnes' ceiling is a lot higher than RJ Barrett's. But when you take a look across the board as well, essentially every category, it's RJ Barrett and Gary Trent Jr. And Gary Trent Jr. is almost giving you a lot more in every category. But again, it is to note, what stats can be deceiving sometimes when you take a look at the turnovers. That's potentially because RJ is expected to do a lot more on the offensive side, whereas Gary Trent Jr., he's the third or fourth option, right, on the Raptors. So again, we can show you statistics. Obviously, I would have loved to have RJ Barrett, but Gary Trent Jr. just fits in so well with the Raptors. And again, it's not that we're moving Gary Trent Jr., but it's just, it'd be challenging. You know what? It'd be challenging to bring Gary Trent Jr. off of the bench, but at the same time, do you trade for RJ Barrett and put him on the bench? So that's the difficult question. But I'm just surprised at the fact that the New York Knicks were willing to move RJ Barrett. You know what? I thought he was part of their core moving forward. And I was a little bit surprised to hear this news. And this becomes more interesting as we approach the NBA trade deadline because we know the New York Knicks have already said they're willing to trade guys like Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and other guys like Alec Burke as well to create some roster space and just to give minutes to the younger guys as well. So does this mean that the Knicks don't value RJ Barrett as much as we may have thought? Is he gettable? I'm not saying the Raptors should trade for him, but would the New York Knicks actually trade RJ Barrett for the right piece? It's going to be very interesting as the NBA trade deadline approaches, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this trade proposal. Would you have done it? How would the Raptors have incorporated RJ Barrett into our starting lineup or bench? Where would you play him? So let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below. And I do have a trivia question for you guys today. And this is a very simple and easy trivia question. It was, Gary Trent Jr. was drafted at which spot? So was he drafted at the 28th spot? Is it A? Is it B, 37th spot? Is it C, 32? Or is it D, 23rd spot? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. And as I promised, guys, I do have a Goran Dragic update for you guys here. And Goran Dragic, this is really interesting because you see Goran Dragic practicing in a facility that kind of looks like the Miami Heat facility, right? We know he's been in Miami. He's been showing up to Miami Heat games. And it's funny, when you take a look at this picture, notice that he's wearing a shirt that says 10-day, which is obviously means 10 days almost to the NBA trade deadline. We know that the NBA trade deadline is coming up soon, and he's very likely to get traded. But this is just funny to see. He's kind of being petty in a way because, he knows he's going to get traded and he's just counting down the days till he finally gets to play and he's away from the Raptors. But this is going to be a very fun and interesting trade deadline, not only as a Raptors fan, but just as a basketball fan in general. Will the New York Knicks consider moving RJ Barrett? Now that we know they discussed this deal with the Raptors, does it seem like other teams will make big moves? What are the Raptors going to do? This is going to be a fun NBA trade deadline. So make sure you stay locked on this channel. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. You guys can follow me on social media. My Instagram is The Rj Report. Twitter is Rj. I like to get back to you guys as soon as possible. So make sure you guys comment below. You can message me on social media as well regarding your thoughts on the NBA trade deadline as well. So that will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.